G'day everyone, I'm Jimmy Rayner and welcome back to episode 15 of the Thinkmental podcast. Again, this is a platform where we aim to discuss things all mental health and provide young people with strategies on how to better understand their feelings and emotions. Mental health disorders do not discriminate, and at Thinkmental we want to simplify things in which we tackle them basically. And I just really want to say thank you firstly for checking out the podcast again. I've had some amazing feedback ongoing and I'm not stopping here. It's something that I'm passionate about, and I just wanted everyone to be reminded that the reason I'm doing this is that I've battled my own issues in the past, and it's a passion of mine because I've got out the other side, still managing things, but I'm out here now tackling and building strategies of my own that I think can help other people. So thank you again for listening and the support you've shown, but we'll get into this week's episode. This week's guest is coming all the way from Santa Barbara, California, and is doing amazing things in the personal development and mental health space. He's a nonsense intuitive mindset coach, speaker, and group facilitator. His career experience has spanned the world of organisational and personal development, and he has what he calls a story that is raw, messy, ugly, and unflinching. Our guest has a master's degree in conflict resolution. He's the host of the Fearless Now podcast, owner of Sam-led Consulting. He runs a blog, and lastly is an author of the book Fearless, with the aim of helping clients see that there are far more powerful things than their fears, anxieties, or bad habits. It is none other than Sam-led. G'day, mate.
It's an honor to be here, and you made me sound so good. I mean, I see a future in PR marketing, or just having really good podcasts that you do have.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're well on your way. Well
it's
said.
It's my way of getting my creative itch out. I don't want to do it full time, but it's just I can scratch the itch and it's done for the week.
and you've demonstrated to yourself that you're good at it, and people love to hear your voice, man. I mean, I'm here.
Yeah, I was. If it wasn't surprised.
for your podcast is brilliant, and if it wasn't, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't. And of course, you really care about people, and it's definitely, we definitely hear it and see it and feel it in your work on this podcast. So thank you, and thank you for contributing to some. Everyone's a podcaster, right? There are a million podcasters, but there are a handful that really make a difference. Joe Rogan's great, okay, but you make a difference.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You really do. And that speaks, volumes. They're going to remember your podcast versus, a comedy show, which is great. But, let's get to the nitty gritty, the real issues. And
I know we
called human life.
We nearly got stuck in a D&M just literally 5 minutes ago before we started recording. So we had to click record before we got into the gems.
How's the lock? Before we get into the nitty gritty, how's the lockdown going? I hate the word lockdown. How's that?
Yeah, the confinement. The confinement.
What is that like? Because ours was, what they call it, stay at home order. Yeah.
Oh, really? Is that what they call it? Jeez. It's interesting because I think the way Aussies are, we're very laissez-faire. We're pretty chill characters. And we're just
like Santa Barbarans.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's sort of just like, it'll be all right. Like whatever. And everyone's doing like the right things, but like I went out so coffee shops are still open. The ones that do takeaway, which are pretty much every coffee shop. And my mate and I who live together, we went out to a coffee shop and there were tons of people just standing there waiting for their coffee orders. And, we got masks on and all that, but it just didn't feel like a lockdown. It was weird. So,
well, the whole thing is just surreal and
bizarre.
Weird.
And that's
beyond bizarre.
And that's what I posted on my Thinkmental page is like, just try and keep things normal-ish. Like do what you can with exercise, do what you can with routine. At the end of the day, if you overthink it becomes stressful. But if you think about your weeks, half the time you are at home. You're either working from home, or the only time you're out of home is when you're in the office at work. So if you stress out and worry, oh shit, I'm at home, it's not really any different to what you do day to day, week to week.
And all of that is all wrapped up in, our perception of it. And it's all wrapped up in our thinking about it versus, because a lot of people, they learned how to meditate. They learned how to get really calm. They learned more about themselves. It was more than they would have ever learned if they didn't have this lockdown, even though it's a horrible thing and people are getting sick, and we won't go into that, but it's there's a lot of good things that have come out of it. And I'm sorry you're going through this, but
it's just small bump in the
here.
road, isn't it? And that's it.
Right.
It's sort of like, for me, I'm going, and this is how my mindset's changed over time. Is my mindset is now, it's a silver lining. I've got a lot of time now to spend on my podcast, on my uni stuff. It's just giving me more time to do things that I would otherwise be distracted with social, outings or whatever it is. So it's good.
Noise.
Exactly.
We call it noise. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
But I just want to give everyone a bit of an overview of your story, because we've sort of just come across each other through the Instagram sphere. And like we said before, it's funny how and I've said this in a previous podcast, when you start doing this personal development stuff and podcasting, you just come across people and their paths and randomly just start chatting, and how crazy it is that we're 8,000 miles away, whatever you said it was. And we're chatting.
It's a lot of miles.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's more than a lot.
So if you can give everyone an overview of who you are and the main things about you, would be great, so everyone can know what your story is.
Well, my name is Sam Lett. I'm a transformational coach based out of Santa Barbara, California. And I work with people essentially that a lot of them are in recovery from drugs and alcohol. Some of them are just stuck writing a book. They're stuck in the same chapter. Literally, they're stuck in their relationships. They're stuck in their health. Well, they think they're stuck. And I basically, I point them back to who they really are, which is calm, successful, feeling good, quiet, resilient. And, we get lost in the minutia of that, of thought and thinking. And I'm going to steal this quote again, as I steal it in every podcast I've been on. Sydney Banks, who discovered this understanding called the 3 principles, who had his own kind of enlightenment experience about 50 years ago. Very ordinary man, 9th grade education. He was a welder from British Columbia, who basically really saw all his suffering, all his overthinking, his thinking, his anxiety, his depression, how his state of mind is, he thought ruined his relationships, and he just wasn't a happy camper before he discovered that, we're just one thought away from mental health, literally right now in real time. But our mind likes to overcomplicate things. Our mind will say, no, you've dealt with this for decades. It's a lot more complicated than that. But it really is. It all comes down to one thought away. That's it. When we see beyond it, below the noise, we get a really good idea of who we really are. The noise of thought and thinking wrapped up in this conceptual package of conditioning, because we have who we really are, right? And then we have that thought created reality that's being packaged up and regurgitated to us by our brain. So I work with folks that are brilliant, like all of us are, that are really capable, that some of them along the way made some mistakes, whether it's in legally or otherwise. We all make mistakes. And I'm kind of their guide. I share with them this understanding. I repoint them back to this intelligence within them that we all have, this internal GPS that we all have within us, but we don't pay attention to it enough, because the noise up here is like Las Vegas. We all love Las Vegas, or we hate Las Vegas, but it's very distracting, because that calm voice is calm. It's not loud. Nirvana is not screaming and yelling and fireworks and casinos. It's breathing.
And this is something I'm getting into now, with where after buying the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Yeah,
classic.
Yeah, and the first chapter is literally about thought and how powerful thinking about what you actually want, rather than allowing the noise and the emotions of certain situations to overbear what you really want. And it's not about just going, I want this. It's defining exactly what you want, and then just thinking about it all the time. just thinking I'm getting there, I'm doing this, I'm feeling this. But because at the end, and to your point, and not to get off a tangent already, but for so long I've thought to myself, oh, I'm just the type of guy that has these issues. I'm just the type of guy that has to deal with this. And as soon as I change my mind frame of
you just hit it right there.
Yeah.
You just like, pin the donkey right there. Bullseye.
Yeah.
We are through no fault of society, or through, there are some brilliant therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists, well-meaning folks out there, but they have it backwards. That want to help people, but they've been taught to see things backwards. And that's brutal for a lot of people here, because we've been conditioned to see the world that our outside circumstances cause our conditioning, or cause us to feel a certain way, when in reality we're living in a 100% thought-based world. We have this thing called our brain, which is a supercomputer. It's just a machine that is creating this narrative in real time, like a narrator in a movie, right? That's being, scripted and produced by the best used car salesman in the world, called your brain, through conditioning, through how we were raised, through our Judeo-Christian beliefs. And when you see that that's a 100% thought-based reality, and that we all of us drop into some form of meditation every day, we just don't pay attention to it enough. We actually are walking meditation. The moments that we have this weird, unusual connection, we don't know where it comes from with people. We get into this space of quiet, right? And once we see that, and you can read it in some great personal development books that Eckhart Tolle wrote, The Power of Now, and all the great sages. Pick your all-star prophet, pick your all-star sage, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, the Maharishi, whoever speaks to you, all point to the same thing. But what happens? Well, sometimes our brain does a lot of brilliant things, but it's only as good as the operator behind the computer, right? If you, like my laptop's on right now, it's worthless. It's a paperweight if I don't type on it and do, hit certain commands and use the mouse. Our brain is the same way. Left to its own devices, it'd be like, I don't even want to know if we just let our brain do its own thing. There is someone behind the controls, us. We really do have control. But we have this conditioned self, right? Our real self, who we are all diamonds. We are all 100% perfect. What ends up happening is, and I'm going to steal this from one of my favorite coaches, and he's a wonderful author. He's wrote a whole bunch of books out there, The Space Within, and I've seen him speak many times. He calls it, we are diamonds covered in shit, layered with nail polish. So underneath the condition, so that we are diamonds, right? So now you add conditioning, right? You add belief, habitual thought, which is manufactured by our brain, right? So we're wearing this mask outside in the world that we think is truth. And we do all these kind of cognitive gymnastics in order to fit into whatever category or group. But underneath all that, we are all the same. What makes us different is our experience. But when we let feeling be the guide to who we are, we look at feeling, thought and feeling, which is basically our experience, our psychological experience. When we let it be our guide, and when we understand how to use the controls, when we see that we ultimately have agency over thought and thinking, even though we think we don't, because it's really loud sometimes, we see there's a whole world beyond thought, because we do all our greatest things. When you're writing papers in uni, right? Because I'm sure you're in the thick of it, right? You're just plugging along, taking courses and finishing up. You do your best work. You get I don't know how your grading system is. You get great. Yeah. You get A+ on papers, however they score the papers. Yeah. 100% on papers. When you drop into the present moment, that's who you are. You're not. We don't fall in love. We don't meet the love of our life. We don't write our greatest book. We don't find the job of our dreams when we are caught up in our thinking. The brain is great for keeping us alive, by the way. I mean, I love the brain. The brain loves you, right? But the brain is 100% like a computer. It's zeros and ones. And it's great for modulating organ systems. If we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger,
it's a survivalist. It's a survivalist.
We have a brain that has right, exactly. You just hit it right there. We have a brain that has an operating system that hasn't had an update since the Paleolithic era. I mean, we're dealing with some old equipment, but we use the equipment wrong. And we're taught to use the equipment wrong innocently. So, sorry, I don't know what that is. So not to get off on a tangent, but I was led to this understanding, and we all have this understanding under our belts. We just, again, don't pay attention to it enough. We see nirvana, we see calm, we see it when we're dropped into the moment with someone that we are falling in love with, when we're get those goosebumps when we're meeting someone. We're just like, oh my God, this is the person. This is my person, right? Or your first automobile, right? Or the car that you like always wanted it, and finally you have it. That kind of feeling, that feel good feeling. And you don't need to buy a shiny, I don't know what you have, a Holden Commodore. I don't know what you guys have out there.
Isuzus and
this is okay. Everything okay.
Holdens, yeah.
Holden's okay. What I don't know. I'm totally stereotyping you guys, but it's terrible. Sorry. I love Australia, by the way. Great surf as well. It's once we see we don't need any of that, because we drop into a feel good feeling every day. Every single day we do, every moment of every single minute of our day, there is some point in time when we are in the present moment, right? We just feel good for no reason. We just, time speeds up. We get really creative. We think of, we might have a problem in our day. There's a problem at work, and all of a sudden we find a solution. There's insight there. There's wisdom. That's what I'm pointing to. And so that's what we have to work with. But we also have a whole bunch of equipment on board that we use incorrectly. Once we learn how the mind really works, not what psychologists tell you, not what modern mental health industry is telling you. And again, I'm not poo-pooing. I'm not saying that what they're doing is terrible, but it doesn't make any sense, because not one psychologist, I don't care who they are, and they might even tell you differently, not one therapist cures their patients, because you can't cure something that's not broken. Medication is great to calm the noise down temporarily. It's like training wheels. And I don't poo-poo medication, because remember, we're dealing with a brain, which is a computer. I look at medication as kind of like a software update patch, right? It's like, I don't know, on your iPhone, it's like, it updates. That's what medication's like. It's kind of, it's streamlining the neural connections, whether it's, increasing more dopamine or preventing reuptake of serotonin. Name your neurochemical that you're working with. That's what it does. But at our true nature, our essential self, who we are, is calm, is loving. Our true nature, our essential state is love. We see it all the time, but our brain, our lovely brain that wants to keep us safe, that loves us, gets involved. It's like a helicopter parent, right? Our brain is like, bounces around and trying to figure out stuff, and really can contaminate our experience sometimes when we take it seriously.
And this is an analogy that I'm going to lean into just from off the back of what you've just said. But do you think that, let's say for medication example, medication I feel would be like you said, a software update makes the computer maybe run a little bit quicker, but the problem is, until you remove all the folders on your desktop, that medication and software update won't be as effective, which would be, the noise, the mess in your life. Or is that the angle, maybe probably overthinking it?
Well, that's the paradigm I'm speaking of, that we have kind of backwards. So those folders don't exist, by the way. Those folders, those old programs, the noise in our heads is we ultimately have control of our thinking. We don't, if thought and thinking is like a salad bar, right? Or a buffet. You go to like a hotel that has a huge buffet. And you can pick from, the salad section and the cake section. Obviously you're not going to take, 5 pieces of cake and, and 2-3 pounds of French fries and 5 hamburger patties, obviously, right? You have some kind of discretion, or, what you want, and you pick from it and you sit down at the table. You're not going to like go crazy. We ultimately have freedom of choice when it comes to our thinking. The folders, whatever happened in the past doesn't matter. None of it, not one of it, not any of it. If it does matter, now hear me, and I mean this out of love, and because this is not taking away people that have dealt with trauma, but we suffer so much when we're caught up in what's going on in the past. Now, people that suffer from PTSD and trauma, that have been introduced to this understanding, there's psychiatrists and psychologists that shared this understanding of the 3 principles and have changed people's lives. There are coaches that go into the prison system, people that have murdered, prisoners that have murdered folks and done terrible things, finally see what I'm pointing to. And they become more free than they were on the outside. They become more free when they see who they really are, their true essence. What happens? They end up becoming coaches and helping people and being calmer, loving people, because they see who they really are. They see that like they wouldn't perpetrate these crimes to their family or to people they love. And that's when we really drop out of thought. We live in a thought-based universe, not in a circumstance-based universe. Example. In a war-torn area, in any war, whether it was, whether it's in the Middle East or in World War II or in Vietnam, whatever war, you pick up your favorite war. There have been lots of studies have been done that show even during terrible atrocities happening, and buildings being bombed, there are still kids playing in the streets and having the best time ever. There are still parents parenting their kids. There are still people helping each other. Okay. You can go to the worst slums in South Africa and all around the world, and people are still happy. Right. Conversely, you can go to Beverly Hills, California, right? You can go to the richest neighborhood in Brisbane, and people are freaking miserable. The reason is because our outside circumstances have 100% nothing to do with our state of mind. 100%, but we think it does. Because through our conditioning, we've been conditioned through habitual thought and thinking that a Rolls Royce is going to make me happy, or I don't know, living on the beach is going to make me happy. It's a choice. It's nice, but we are happy anyways. And we have it backwards. It's our conditioning that makes us look at it that way. And our brain, when we are having, when our quality thinking is pretty crummy, and it can happen whether we're rich or poor, healthy or sick, young or old. It doesn't discriminate, our software glitches. And what our brain does is, because it has to figure out what's going on. Remember, we're dealing with an operating system that's pretty darn old. Finds a fall guy, right? Finds a fall guy. Like, I'm going to give you an example today. I was getting gas, and this guy in front of me was like, he was screaming and yelling on his phone to his wife, like blaming the reason why they have no money on or why he's in such a bad mood, and blah 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 blah. And he's screaming and yelling, and he's just like totally caught up. I bet you in an hour when he gets home, it's like it never happened. Like I had a guy cut me off in the freeway, and I got kind of angry, and I was like, this guy, my brain is doing this, not me. My brain is, this guy is irresponsible. How can you let him do that? The devil on my shoulder, but the ego is saying, you should get his license plate and report him. You should scream, catch up with him and tell him how much of a bad person he is. I didn't listen to it because that's all noise. The brain needs to find a fall guy. We get caught up in the noise because it's so convincing. We feel our thinking, and it's normal to feel our thinking. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, subconsciously to that point, and I didn't realize I was doing it, but I have recognized these noises and these fall guys in my days and my habits that have actually created poor mood and things like that. And subconsciously I've added things to my day or little tricks that, weirdly enough, avoid those fall guys. Like, for instance, the cut getting cut off or something bad happening in traffic. I've got a no beep rule, I don't beep unless I am about to get hit. Like
Right.
it's the worst case scenario. I only beep then. But if they cut me off and they're off like doing their own thing, I never beep. If someone's taking a long time, I never beep, because I know I've been driving one day and having a panic attack, and I've probably driven like what would look like a lunatic, or
I know what that's like just a little bit. I'm feeling you because
yeah,
you're preaching it because I had the same. Go ahead.
yeah, and it just goes, look, if I beep him, is that gonna, or her, is that going to help anyone, or is it gonna just be something that, like you said, scratches the ego and we move on? Probably the latter.
Exactly. And you said it very well there, sir, because what happens is that, our neurochemicals kick in, the cortisol and the noradrenaline, when, that the system works perfectly. Remember, the system was designed long, long time ago. The system works perfectly. There's nothing wrong with the system. What happens is when we try to fix the system or find things wrong with it, or use modalities to try to fix that, what happens? It gets noisier, right? We think that, all these techniques work to calm our noise down. They may offer temporary relief, but it's like, why would you add a new fix to something that fixes itself automatically? Because and this goes right to having road rage, and then an hour later it's like it never happened, because our system is perfectly designed. Our brain is perfectly designed to settle on its own without doing a damn thing. 100% of the time, from birth to death. What happens is we think all that crazy noise, like, how dare that guy cut me off, or when someone hurts us, or emotionally makes us feel bad, or criticizes us, or our boss yells at us, whatever, we attribute that feeling of how dare they, or he's a jerk, and we let it corrupt our state of mind. When the quality of our thinking is messed up, it has nothing to do with the other person. Nothing anyone can do to us can make us feel anything. Sometimes we are in a pretty shitty state of mind. But when we see how the equipment works, we can also have real discernment over it and see that it's not there to make us suffer. We only get caught up and start suffering in our thinking we actually believe the bullshit, right? The made up story creating in real time by a supercomputer called your brain that doesn't know the difference between a grilled cheese sandwich and a guy yelling at you at the gas station. It's stimulus response, stimulus response, right? Thinking, feeling, That's all it does. And then we get wrapped up in the psychology of it. And then the old memory that we actually believe is true, that happened 30 years ago when Sally yelled at us and broke up, but whatever. I'm making this all up, but you get what my drift. What the system is designed to do is kind of like in your car with a check engine light. When we are caught up and our quality of thinking is crappy, it's saying, let it settle. Don't believe what's going on right now in your head. Don't take your crazy thinking seriously. You will settle. It's the best barometer to whether you believe you're thinking or not. It's the best barometer to really tapping into your inner wisdom, because once you see like that the brain's going to throw a whole bunch of error codes out when it's trying to keep you safe, but thinking that thought can keep you safe, which it can't. It's not even real. It's completely made up. I mean, unless you have a pet thought running around your house. I certainly don't. And that's where a lot of well-meaning professionals, therapists, psychologists have it backwards. We can't be, once we see that the system, our feelings when we're feeling really crappy or overwhelmed or anxious, all the system is telling us is that we're too zoomed into our problem, to back off, to let go of the controls. What I mean by that is not like, if you're doing a presentation at work and you're feeling really anxious, like I'm anxious right now talking to you.
Really?
It's natural. It's normal. It doesn't mean like that you're making me feel nervous, Jimmy, because you're intimidating. Yeah, maybe you are intimidating, bro. Handsome dude, you're intimidating. But what I'm saying is like, all it's saying is it's not the time to believe you're thinking right now. Back off the controls, let go of the controls, take a deep breath, and be really discerning over your thoughts moving through your head right now. Don't believe them right now. Wait till it settles. Once you start feeling calm again, look for a feel-good feeling. It's always there right around the corner. And that's when we do our best work. When our mind's free from all that noise, we have a really rich and powerful life experience,
Mm.
because we are not the sum total of our thoughts. That's not who we are. And that's, I got sick of suffering in my thinking. And it took me decades to really see it, because it's the greatest Ponzi scheme in the history of Ponzi schemes. When we get caught up in our thinking that that's truth in the moment. And it's really addicting. We all do it.
Mm. It's
But
easy as
then
well, I feel.
it's so easy.
It's the easiest way out is thinking the worst thing is going to happen, rather than, oh, what if the best thing happens? What if I have a meeting today or a presentation and I don't feel panicked or anxious or whatever it might be.
And you're more Jimmy when you're anxious and you go up in front of the podium saying, I'm a little nervous right now, guys. Just bear with me real quick. I'm Jimmy, and I'm from the Thinkmentalist podcast and blah, blah, blah. Being your authentic self doesn't mean that you're exposing yourself to the wolves, right? Because you find your tribe wherever you are. And if that's not the right tribe that you're speaking in front of, they don't like you, well, there's another tribe waiting for you to join, whether it's work-wise and relationships. It's like we think that we need to fit in. We need to like mold ourselves to fit into a job or into a relationship. Man, that's exhausting. And the other, and getting back to thought and thinking, why innocently, our mental health system has it backwards, is we can't beat the system. We can beat our own asses by trying to fix ourselves, right? Going to therapy and doing stopping techniques and affirmations and neurolinguistic programming. And good, there's some great folks out there, and they mean well. But why? That's so exhausting. Why do we need to put more layers on a built-in system that's not broken to begin with? It's just more work, and it also makes the noise louder, because we then end up focusing on ourselves more, right? We end up putting more emphasis on what the so-called problem is with our anxiety or with our OCD or with our ADHD, that it's like a vicious cycle. We think we're giving ourselves temporary relief because someone is telling us to do this certain strategy or exercise. But you know what happens? 99.999% of the time, people forget. And what else ends up happening? They go back to thought. And they're back at the races, when the thought is not there to be your worst enemy. It's once they've used this understanding. They've gone into psychiatric hospitals and said, you have this blue dot right here. Who you are is not the voices in your head. And we all have voices sometimes that are louder than others. And I'm not demeaning or I'm not devaluing people's suffering, but you know what? Suffering is overrated. And as quickly as you can be diagnosed with a disorder, as quickly as you can say, I'm just one thought away from mental health, man, that I'm capable, loving, resilient human being. I got all this in me right now. I got all the tools within me to make my life amazing, to make my life full of love and full of success and full of calm, right? And once we see that we do our best work, fall in love, build our business, have, raise great children when we are in the present moment and not up in our head, none of it happens in our brain. Nothing. When we are in a state of flow and calm and well-being, that's our essential state. That's our default state. And it took me a long time to find that, man. It took me decades of suffering. And it's like, I could beat myself up for suffering. I could beat myself up for what I had to go through, the mistakes I made. Some of them were terrible mistakes. It's in my book coming up. And the judgments I had of myself and criticisms I had of myself, it's like I was kicking my own ass for decades for no reason. Because other people's opinions don't fucking matter. None of them. Nothing. Our brain will tell us otherwise. You need to be friends with this person because they're going to get you a job, or, they're the in. It's so liberating when you see that just being yourself with your frailties underneath the noise and just calm is the way to opening doors in life versus the other way. which is,
It,
yeah, swimming
it,
upstream.
it's so funny how, because and this is where I'm on my own journey, and this is why I love talking to people like self and anyone in this space, is that I'm always learning something about what resonates with me or not. And what I'm figuring out is there's so many different pillars in everyone's life that can make or break your happiness and your calm and things like that. And to your point about, oh, I need to be friends with this person because they have this and whatever. I've made a shift, and one of my key pillars now, and I am going to be announcing a change in my pillars because they were very broad recently. They were mind, body, sleep, finance, relationships, and very, very, very good, but very broad. And I've redefined them, and one of them is, for the relationships, is genuine connection, and my mindset of changing to I'm only going to be friends with, or I'm only going to be building relationships with people that I actually feel a genuine connection with and who align with where I want to go, rather than I'm going to be friends with them because they are famous or they have money or they like to get on the drinks with me or whatever it is. It's, I want to have good conversations with them. I want to feel like they want to hang out with me as much as I want to hang out with them, whatever it might be. And that's, to your point, is it's just understanding that you can control what noise comes in and out of your life. It's about choosing the right way.
And I love that at 25 you're already setting these goals, these paradigms, these, what do you call them, pillars?
Yeah,
I love the word pillar. That's
me
awesome.
too. Yeah, it's very businessy.
But you have to understand something, Jimmy. That's already there. It's already there. You have this blue dot of well-being, this blue dot. You attract your tribe, and I had a client years ago that was in a very abusive physical relationship and emotional abuse. It was horrible. It's like, I can't get away from my, what am I going to do for money? My husband. And I said, well, let's look at it this way. When you get quiet at night, when you're about to go to sleep and you're just listening to your breathing, you're just quiet, right? I want you to really just not think about what your strategy is going to be to get out of a terrible situation like that, or what to do. I just want you to just get quiet. Just don't think. Just be quiet. Just lay in your bed, wherever you are, and see what comes up. Don't try to force it. See what wisdom comes through, because all of the greatest advice that we give ourselves is not in the chaos of our thinking. It's not when we're feeling anxious. If you're feeling anxious and your brain is saying you need to do this, or you better make a decision soon or you're going to lose this opportunity, that's not the time to make a decision there. Remember, thought and when the quality of our thinking is going sideways, when we have to make decisions, that's not the time to make a decision. When the quality of our thinking is going sideways too, that's not the time to make any kind of real important change in your life. And once I saw that for myself, and I saw how my brain was cooking up the urgency, like making up the urgency that I need to make a decision soon, or else. What or else? What am I going to implode? Am I going to die? Am I going to disappear? Is Sam who he is? Is Sam's this human form, this physical body, and as a spiritual being, just going to cease to exist? No. So if a woman who's dealing with in a horrible marriage, in a physically abusive marriage, can find her way out without having to getting really quiet and finding her way out, without having to really beat herself to find it, because we all do a great job of beating ourselves up. I mean, and I was reminded of that. There's an old movie, and there's another 3-piece coach out there that shared this story. I'm stealing it from him. There's a movie called Liar Liar. Way before your time. Okay, have you seen it? There's a scene
Jim
when
Carrey?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And he can't tell. He's a lawyer who for one day he can't tell a lie, which is like an oxymoron. Like a lawyer not telling a lie is like his all his lawyering powers cease to exist, and he's so losing his shit. he goes into the bathroom in the courthouse and starts kicking his own ass.
Yeah.
that's what we do, because we can't beat the system. We can't. That's why long term, you can't, behavior modification doesn't work. Work. There was another great example of that, of when we ignore our true essence, and when we just and we believe our phobias and believe our anxiety, believe our fears, and it becomes a phobia where we avoid stuff. And I personally had dealt with that, avoiding getting on the freeway because I had a fear of it, realizing it, it's absolutely nonsensical, but the noise is really loud and there's a physiological response to it. Well, there was a coach that did this really interesting experiment with a bunch of folks that had a fear of spiders. I think it's arachnophobia, right? So he brings the participants in the room and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, there's 10 black widow spiders in that box, right? And the whole room freaks out. Like, the people are like running out the room, screaming, and because these are people with legitimate phobia. He starts laughing and he opens the box up. There's nothing in the box. We're living in a thought created reality. It's all fucking made up, man.
That's pretty, yeah.
It's all made up, but we take the bait, and it's okay to take the bait. But when we see that there's this intelligence, this inner guidance underneath that noise that's running the show, that wants us to be successful, that it's our default state, it's our God-given gift. I mean, we have this intelligence behind the brain, behind the machinery, that's guiding us along this river called life. And suffering is optional in this experience. Now we're going to get, there's a great quote that, life's a contact sport. We're going to get our lumps. We're going to get, banged around from time to time. But we don't have to create a story around it all the time. It's all hyperbole.
And
story.
I want to keep on this great path that we're going, but I'm conscious of time. Yep. And to end that point, and for the people listening, an example I have my own is I feel like I've got control over my panic episodes. I'm not going to say disorder. I don't think I've got a disorder. I've just got the occasional panic attacks, and one place that really just makes me feel, I don't know why, I just get so panicked is shopping centers, like the what we have, Westfields here, and there so many people just.
I think we do too.
Oh, okay, cool.
And in LA.
And for some reason it's just, and this might be my imagination, for some reason the aircon just mustn't work in there because I just get hot and flustered, and for so long I've just struggled to go to big shopping centers. I just couldn't do it. If there was no way I can see either a window or the outside world, I would freak out. And for so long it'd been that way. But recently I'd walk in. I went to Kmart, and I recently have bought a place, and Kmart, I don't know if you got Kmart in America.
Oh, actually Kmart was bought, I think it was bought out, and it actually started here.
Oh, right.
Kmart.
Okay.
And I think it was then bought out by someone else, or it went bankrupt here. I'm not sure.
It's an
amazing. We got a lot of Targets.
It's very similar.
Same thing. Yeah.
Kmart's amazing for cheap home appliances. Anyway.
Yes.
When people go in there, it's typical for just buying random shit that probably you don't need, but it's so cheap, it's good. Anyway, I needed to go in there because I've just bought my place, and
congratulations.
Thank you. And my thought pattern was, and this is where, to your point around thought, is not this time. I just keep saying to myself, not this time. And at first I was like, oh, getting those feelings, my legs are shaking or feeling weak, my head's spinning. I'm feeling like I'm probably going to pass out, and I just said, not this time. And I just kept walking around, and eventually I gained control, and I spent an hour and a half in there, which is the longest I've ever spent in a shopping center in my life, for a long time. And it's so powerful.
Bravo, buddy. And you just actually, what I've been sharing for the last hour or so, I think it's been talking a lot, way too much, is exactly what you just, what you just shared is exactly what I was pointing to. So, we do have selection over thought. Like, for example, when I get on the freeway now, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to have a great ride. Because I would end up having panic attacks driving on the freeway. And I could feel them coming. And my wisdom would say, very gently, Sam, I think it's a good time to pull over on the side of the road. Fine. He did. It calmed down. It's uncomfortable as hell. See, we that experience is really uncomfortable physiologically, but it can't kill us. But once we see the glitch in the operating system temporarily moving some pretty heavy turbulent thought through, we don't take it as serious anymore. It becomes less disturbing in our life. It becomes less of a disruption in our life as we see it more. And we appreciate when we are able to kind of like, not today, not today. And I've done similar things like that when I'm driving on the freeway and I start getting anxious for no reason. I don't know why. My brain can tell me, well, the lanes are narrower, or there's no pull off, there's no shoulder on the road. It's a construction zone. It's dangerous. The brain's going to spew a whole bunch of stuff out there to try to keep you safe. But again, thought can't keep you safe. You can keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
And you start having goodwill for yourself and really appreciating like that wisdom that came through. It was a quiet voice. It wasn't your screaming and yelling at you, like, get the hell out of there. It was like, you got this, not today.
Yeah.
You got it.
And this is so weird, Sam, but I've never, like, I can feel like my emotions are coming out of me at the moment.
No, of course.
And I've never, this hasn't happened yet on the podcast, but I think I was reflecting on when you were saying that. It's like, and I do this a lot now where I just, like, I probably have done it in the past where I've talked to myself, but I reflect on how proud I am of myself, where I've come from. And like you said, we've got the shit over our diamond and whatnot, and the nail polish on top of that. And my shit and my nail polish internally is just fucking disgusting sometimes. But
so is mine. You should see mine's awful.
But I am who I am now, and I sit here every day with gratitude. Some days I forget to be grateful. But when I get emotional like that, reflecting on it, because I go, fuck me, I've come a long way.
So far, man.
And that's what makes me happy. Like I have a house now. I have an all right car, but I don't get excited by those things. I get excited by being out because of the shit that I've been through. I get excited by being able to go to the Kmart with my friends, being able to go to a cafe and not be freaking out because I've had too much caffeine or whatever it might be. And it just makes me so happy knowing that.
And because you saw that's insight. That's the inner wisdom coming through. You see the intelligence underneath the noise. Okay. Intelligence isn't criticism or analyses or conceptualization of stuff. Intelligence, what I'm pointing to, what other practitioners that share this understanding point to, is seeing that you don't, nirvana happens every day. We experience nirvana every day, like going to Kmart and just losing track of time and just enjoying that experience in the moment. Who gives a shit if it's Kmart or whatever? Who cares? And just having appreciation for it and gratitude for Kmart and gratitude for just being alive with your mates or with your family, going to Kmart, or in the fact that, and you, all these things that you've created in your life did not happen from trying to figure out up here in your brain. None of it. Buying your house, your job, all that stuff. And this podcast, you created that from you beneath the noise. And just like, we didn't really talk about my ADHD but it's all Venn diagram. An ADHD brain is extraordinarily noisy. You want to talk about it's like, oh, wow. I mean,
do you want to go into some of the challenges and hardships you've been through and reference obviously the ADHD as well?
Well, this is your podcast. You're
Absolutely.
driving the ship.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
I'm
where I
just
wanted to go anyway. I do want to make sure that we touch on why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's, from my understanding, is the, I guess, trauma or hardship you've been through in the past has got you to where you are now. So if you want to touch on that, that'd be great.
Sure. And I apologize for my long thesis, but I wanted to share that because I think it's necessary for the audience to understand where I'm coming from
Yeah.
with my work. I've dealt with learning disabilities in ADHD and anxiety, OCD, and panic for many, many decades. I was first diagnosed with a learning disability, which was, they didn't know what ADHD was or ADD was when I was growing up. This is, early 80s. No idea. They would prescribe Ritalin or, methylphenidate or name your favorite psychostimulant out there, to calm the brain down. And that worked for me, seeing that was the software update. I needed that to just calm the brain down. But I actually wasn't officially diagnosed with ADHD until my mid-20s. So for decades, I felt misunderstood. Like I come from a loving family. I was healthy physically, but emotionally I was a mess. I felt understood because I thought that what was going on between my ears was, I didn't think there was anything wrong with me, but I would talk out of turn. I would be a little bit hyperactive. My reading comprehension sucked. I wouldn't be able to remember after reading something. And then I realized I just wasn't interested in what we were reading. So I forgot about it, right? And I needed high stimulus. But I ended up doing okay in school, in high school, but it was really a lot of self-torture and a lot of feeling misunderstood by others, because of the way my brain works. And when I say how my brain works, years later, I realized there was really nothing wrong with me, that it's just everyone's brain works differently. And we call that a neurotype. So I look at ADHD like as a neurotype, that folks like myself that, have a very speedy, very busy brain are just attention different. We just have a different way of taking in data and processing it, for better or for worse. Once I started to love myself more, and then something happened to me, about 18 years ago that, was partly my fault. It was something that it's in my book that I don't want to give it all away, but it really made me see how much I've been in my head for decades, thinking that's gospel. And what other people will tell me about my experience of living on this planet is truth, whether it's from a teacher or from friends. I had friends, and I had a very normal high school, but it was extraordinarily challenging when it came to learning and education, because my strengths were in communications and writing, but my deficits were horrible. I mean, in terms of in mathematics and reading comprehension, it was so bizarre. I just didn't understand it. I really didn't understand. Teachers were just pointing to me how to fix this. Like, you need to do it this way. You need to, you have a problem that you need to deal with the rest of your life, and you're going to have to deal with it for the rest of your life. Good luck. Right. Then we get out into the real world. We have to make a living, right, and pay bills. None of that, man. No one cares about that. Now I'm still, dealing with, now I got ADHD and I got OCD, and I'm in the workforce, and they just want results, right? They just want bottom line. And then some years later, I was officially diagnosed, and I was, again, the psychologist said, this is what's wrong with you. Basically, you have, your body is not producing enough dopamine. So you're going to take this medication, and you're going to have to tell people that you have this, and this when so they give you extra time for this, and I'm thinking, well, there got to be other folks like me that are super smart, but process information differently. Right. And going through, working with psychologists and working with therapists and doing that whole dance, I got more anxious. I got more ADHD. They kept reminding me how fucking dysfunctional I was, right? They kept reminding me how broken I was, innocently, not because they're bad people or because they don't mean well. They're trained the way they're trained to look for what's wrong and to fix it. But when I realized, when I was many years later, when I started coaching and when I was introduced to this understanding that I share about how the mind really works and thought and thinking, I really saw for the first time that I took the bait. That my brain is not truth, that who I am is far beyond my thinking, and who I am is far beyond the beliefs and um, um, habits and conditioning that I was raised in. I put myself through a lot of torture innocently.
Mm.
And when, it suffered in relationships. I mean, I was really depressed for a long time. I was at the point where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm miserable. But I was looking at it all the wrong way, innocently, because all I knew was dysfunction and you're broken and we need to fix this and you need to take this for this. You need to work on this. You need to do these strategies. None of it helped. And then when I saw, like, I can be the observer of my thinking. I don't have to take every thought seriously. If I'm overwhelmed and overstimulated, I can let go of the controls and sit back and just chill in my cubicle at work and still get work done. I still can go in front of people and do a presentation and be scared as shit because my anxiety's doing backflips.
Where did these learnings come from? Was it a particular person? Was it a certain day that you remember?
Well, I had glimpses of it, little like flashes of my true name, of who I am, of that calm, of that flow state. Because I love to write, and I love doing these podcasts, and I just simple moments in life, nothing fancy. Like I'd be sitting on the beach, after going for a swim, and it would just be really calm. I felt good for no reason. Or I'd be with my partner, and she and I just would be listening to a piece of music or watching a Netflix flicks show.
So it's understanding that even with being attention different, you can have calm, and realizing that you can be calm.
I dropped out of my ADHD thinking. We exactly. And we had, because this is what happens through our own conditioning, our brain becomes habituated to, our brain's like a sponge, right? It's like a hard drive, takes in, right? And so what ends up happening is that over time we habituate our brain to certain conditioning, to certain belief systems, to certain habits and behaviors. When I saw it was all nonsense and all untrue, when I was introduced to these principles, that I didn't have to take the bait my brain was giving, shoveling to me. I didn't have to believe every thought that was moving through my brain, that when I'm overwhelmed or I'm anxious or I'm scared or I'm, having a panic attack, I have hope within myself, knowing that it's a glitch in the system that's going to settle. It's scary in the moment when you feel out of control. It's really, and I know what you experience. I've been there. No one's taking away the fact that panic attacks are horrible, and it feels like it feels like you're dying sometimes. But once you start seeing it more, it happens less, because what happens is when you see it more, you take the focus off yourself. Just like when I see my ADHD program being the floppy disk. I'm a Gen Xer, but the floppy disk in the computer, I see the ADHD program running when there are too many windows open in my brain and I'm getting distracted. I stop for a second. I'm like, what is true? Well, Sam is true right now. I'm in the moment right now. That's true. But all these other thoughts that are trying to distract me away from what I'm focusing on, that's not true. It can't be true. I can't touch it. It's not in my outside world. When I was introduced to these principles that were, again, discovered by, we call him the Scottish mystic, Sydney Banks. It's not a cult or anything. It's very regular experience, and we all experience it. But he kind of simplified this understanding that, we are one thought away from mental health. That look for a feel-good feeling. That when your brain tries to overcomplicate things, that's not the time to take it seriously. Right? When we're caught up in, when someone's judging us or criticizing us, that's all on them because of who we are. Right? I mean, I was embarrassed, to for many years being really anxious because with ADHD, we also have, it's like a Venn diagram. We also have anxiety on the other side of it, because ADHD can cause a lot of anxiety because it's our brain's just working overtime for no reason. So I was embarrassed because I thought I was broken. I wouldn't go out and be, around people. I wouldn't go to parties early in high school. I wouldn't try out for the football team or the tennis team because I was scared that I would have a panic attack, or I wouldn't be able to pay attention to the coach, and I would forget what he would say to me, and I would embarrass myself. But then I saw that was made up too. All of it's made up. What is true is underneath all that noise. And we see it all day long. We just don't pay attention to it enough. It's like, for example, you could get into an argument with your mom and hate your mom for a second, right? We all do. And then an hour later, we love our mom again. We can hate our job one day for an hour. We can hate our job. We can, the most miserable job in the world, and we want to quit. And then 2 hours later, we love it again. Thought and thinking, it's moving through us. Yeah. It's like weather, thought is our clouds, and we are the sky. Sometimes we are the thunderstorm clouds, and sometimes they're nice, puffy white clouds.
It's funny. As an example I used in the past, which relates to this, and I learned it through using the Headspace app, actually doing a meditation, and the focus was on noise, actual noise. So you'd sit there and meditate, obviously, and the practitioner or facilitator would talk through, okay, just sit there and imagine every noise that comes through, listen to the wind, the birds chirping as they pass through. Think about what actually happens to your thought or your brain, or that noise specifically, when you hear that noise, and what happens next. It's in, out, in, out, in, out. And you never hold on to that noise because you physically can't. The noise will come and go as it pleases. And then they related that to thought. It's like, okay, well, if you aren't holding on to those noises, why are you holding on to those thoughts? And why are you letting them take up space in your brain when you don't need it to?
And that's a brilliant app, because it makes you kind of see kind of that thought and thinking are like weather patterns, right? It doesn't rain forever. I mean, I know there's climate change, but like I'm here on the East Coast, and we had a thunderstorm an hour ago. Now the sun's out. The sun always comes out. You're gonna have thought turbulence. Your brain's gonna, do some mental gymnastics here and again. But if you can just say, I love you, brain. I love you. I know you're trying to keep me safe, but I know you're not perfect. And, sometimes you're gonna, throw some stuff at me that I'm not gonna like. The more you can look at it that way and be like, what's really true? Get really curious about your thinking. It's like you can turn into a game, actually, in the moment when we're really caught up in our thinking. Like when I'm having, sorry, that's my chair.
The chair.
When we're not me. I'm just plugging my computer in because it's, I don't know why. So hold on one second. Let's see, it's plugged in. Oh. Turn off. One second. We'll go with it until I have an issue with it. When we get really curious about when we're caught up like in ADHD thoughts, because it is a thought program, just like having a panic attack is another thought program that's been inadvertently installed into our hard drive. We didn't ask for it. It's kind of like like a computer virus. A lot of it is through habituation, though, because and that's why, again, I'm not poo-pooing therapists, but when we kind of believe what we're told over and over again, we start believing it and it becomes part of the program. It's a new program that forms, right? It's like there's COVID, now there's the Delta variant, right? And now there's going to be the Gamma variant. Well, that's how thought and thinking works too. The terrible metaphor, and I'm sorry about that, but thought and thinking programs are viral, right? They're not static. They move through us. So when you can get really curious, when you're really anxious, I mean, it's still okay to get anxious. It's still okay to get panicky. What happens is when we say it's not okay to get anxious, when we see there's something wrong, like we need to try to fix it, that's when it gets more amplified. And when we can look at it that way versus the other way, which is exhausting and we suffer a lot more, it's kind of like, I love flying, but I can't stand turbulence. A lot of us don't like it. And I'm sure flying from here to Australia, you're going to hit some turbulence, especially over, you're flying over different oceans. It's the same thing. The captain turns on the fasten seatbelt light, and hopefully it's, it's not a roller coaster. It's just gonna be some light chop. That light chop dissipates, and then you're smooth sailing again. Yeah. But what happens is when we're in the turbulence, our brain's going, why can't the captain, what's wrong? Why is the captain flying the plane, or why is he asleep at the controls? He shouldn't be changing the altitude or slowing the plane down because of that's what goes on in my head, and it's exhausting.
And I figured out that it's also a fit, and for me, my anxiety comes out of a fear of no control, not knowing what the end result will be. What when someone else is flying a plane, I've got no idea where we're going to go or how we're going to get
exactly there. But then then I look at this way. I'm like really curious. Well, this pilot doesn't want to die. I mean, he's probably has a family. There's 250 other people on board. They don't want to die. The flight attendants, no one wants to die. And then, then I get calm. I'm like, this captain's got it. It's not his fault. We're going to be okay. The plane's built for it, just like you're built for it. You're You're the plane.
Yeah. So because I'm conscious of time, I want to lean into, we won't get to all the topics we wanted to talk about because it's just, I think we might have to do another episode.
Part two, right?
Yeah. But in the most broadest of senses, and we've probably touched on it already, what do you think for people of all ages, what do you think a really good tip for starting their mental health management journey would be?
Well, step one is getting really curious about the system. When I mean the system is how the mind works, right? Understand that the brain is machine, just like your iPhone, just like your Android, just like your MacBook. That's gonna freeze up. You're gonna have to do Control-Alt-Delete. When you see that, and you take it less personal when you get anxious, or when you're feeling really low, see your resilience, because the resilience is there, because you never always feel the same way. You're always going to move through your anxiety. You're always going to move through your dark feelings. And remember, it's all made up. It's just thought. And when your brain starts to blame someone or something for why you feel this way, it's not real, and it's not something to take personal. And also get connected with other folks out there and again, whether it's learning the 3 principles and sharing this understanding, or whatever works for you, but get really active. Don't do this alone. If you're, tell people about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. The more you talk about it, the less you take, you take the emphasis off yourself more. We're a species of animals that need to communicate. We love communication and connection. The more you can connect with others that can share the story, the more you take the emphasis off yourself, and the less you suffer. And if it's really, and if you're really having difficulty, go seek a professional. But remember, and again, it's hard to hear for a lot of people to be conditioned to see that there's something wrong with them, whether it's in dysfunctional relationships and they think it's their partner, or they're just not in a good relationship, or it's, they're dealing with some major life stuff like divorce or health issues. just know that you're not alone, and that ultimately, despite how it feels, see that as a real barometer for how far away you are from who you really are, which is resilient and hopeful and calm and loving, because that's our default state, all of us. And this is not some spiritual practice or some Instagram meme. Our default state's love. That's our default setting. And have some goodwill for who you are. Show goodwill for others and show goodwill for yourself, most importantly.
Yeah, great. And that, I love the connection part to it. It's amazing and one of my biggest tips to people that want to really simplify their way out of a shit state or a really down, dark day is, I just go hang out with your most loved friend, most loving friend, someone that you just know, I can guarantee this person will make me feel good. It's amazing what just being around someone that can influence you positively can do.
And that really helps. But the most important friend to hang out with first is yourself. Start loving and when you start loving when you start loving yourself, that's what I'm really pointing to. Self-love is being present and calm, and get present as much as you can. Appreciate every moment of your day, whether it's from waking up in the morning to taking a shower, to eating breakfast, to going to school or going to work, because every moment is precious. And once we see the noise as noise, those moments will multiply. And then we'll have real gratitude for our life and real appreciation for going to Kmart or whatever it is. And then you can share that appreciation with, or going on the freeway, right. And the more appreciation you can show for all these things that you have, these gifts you have in your life, and then sharing that with others, the noise will still be there, but it won't be as loud. And the noise will also not disrupt your life as much.
100%.
The noise will never go away, but it doesn't have to be your worst enemy. It could just be noise.
Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, that Thinkmental have 5 pillars and they've recently been redefined to be self-awareness, movement, sleep routine, financial stability, and genuine connection. What do you think you struggle with most out of those 5, and why do you think that is?
Well, that's a great question. Well, give me a second. Repeat those pillars again, because my mind just wandered there.
Sorry.
So
self-awareness, movement, so being active, sleep routine, financial stability.
Sleep routine.
Yep.
Sleep routine. Yeah. I'm a card-carrying mind wanderer. So, I'm working on it. My girlfriend is definitely, she's helping me kind of set a more regular routine. But I think that's tough.
So what does a routine for someone like yourself look like to be able to have a better sleep?
Well, I think a lot of it's preparation. So, like for instance, I take vitamins, I prepare when I'm, just to know how long it takes to do to brush your teeth, to take your vitamins, to, wash your face, whatever you're doing to prepare for bed. And that for me has been really helpful. Like I'll time it with a stopwatch. So I'm not
getting distracted.
Right. I'm not mind wandering and going off into the ethers, because that for folks with ADHD and even non-ADHD or night owls, that can be really our Achilles heel, so to speak, because it's sleep is the most important thing next to eating healthy and exercise, I would say. And for me, I'm working on it. I'm definitely a work in progress in that respect, because it's that's been my Achilles for sure. Because when I get 7 hours of sleep, 6 hours, and if I get 8 hours of sleep, I'm rocking it. I'm so present. I'm less anxious.
Yep. 100%.
And
that's why I put it in there. Sorry to cut you off. It's
that's okay.
That's why I've put it in there, and that's the beauty of doing this stuff, is that this is this is what I've lived through. This is the stuff that I've put in there as my 5 pillars that define whether I'm going well or not. And if my sleep is good, if my sleep routine is good, I've turned off all the lights early. I've got, the lavender diffuser playing or put it on, and I've brushed my teeth. I've done my face wash. I've turned off technology after 9 p.m., whatever it might be. I know that the next day I'm going to be absolutely flying. And that's why it's in there. It doesn't have to be for everyone. If people can operate off 4 or 5 hours sleep, good on you. But like you said, I'm the same. I'm way more reactive than I am proactive if I've had less than 7 hours sleep. And I just know that about myself.
And the more you learn about yourself, because again, you learn so much about yourself when you're quiet. And I'm not talking about, you don't have to meditate, just being quiet, just sitting and being quiet, whether it's reading a book or just sitting and listening to a piece of music. When you get quiet, all that wisdom comes through. And that's, for me, I realize that if I don't work on my sleep routine, my health is going to go sideways, even though I'm active, I exercise, and I try to eat well. Your sleep is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Early to rise, early to bed, I think is, it has some, Ben Franklin had some, he's one of the founders, old school. There was something to that. You gotta get enough sleep. And that'll help, especially, if you get enough sleep, your noise is going to be so reduced, and you just deal with life's issues easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing, is you're less reactive and you're way more just calm. Like you said, you're just way more calm. You have opportunity to perceive information a lot better when you have had a good sleep, and they all link as well. If you have poor sleep, you're probably not going to be as active as you want to be, because you're feeling a bit tired and you don't want to go exercise or go for a walk. And then you don't go for walks, you're at home, and instead of going out with your friends, you're tired, so you want to have a sleep instead of hanging out and getting genuine connection. And that's what sort of my thoughts are. They all eventually link up together at some point. But yeah, so my last question that I ask most people on the podcast is, if you had to give yourself or your younger self one piece of advice, what do you think that would be?
That's easy. That's a good question too. Don't listen to all the noise, because it's just noise. And all of it is, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how defeatist the noise is, and when you think that it's real, get curious about how real it is. Even if your brain's saying, well, this person said that you're a loser, then you must be a loser. Or this person said that, you're not good at your job. Or this person says that you're not going to amount to anything. That must be true. If I believed all the nonsense that people told me about myself, that's on them. There's nothing to do with me. It's don't get, I don't get wrapped up in that, but don't believe the noise, because it means absolutely nothing. 100% nothing. Now, if you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, the noise has a reason. Run and keep running like Forrest Gump. But if you're sitting, at work in your cubicle, and someone says something snotty to you, or you get a bad evaluation at work, don't listen to the noise. Don't. Do yourself a favor. You'll save a lot of time. And I can, if I could think back and look at how many hours and hours and hours of time I wasted suffering my own thinking, I'd be a gazillionaire, really. It's just so much, we take away when we get curious about when the noise is really loud, and not take it personal, or allow it to cause us to suffer, or to just sabotage our peace of mind. Any kind of noise, whether someone breaks up with you, or you lose your job, or you get a cancer diagnosis, it's all noise, 100% of it. And, the brain doesn't want to think that. The brain wants to figure out why there's noise, and how much noise, and where did the noise come from. And the brain is going to pick it apart, and very innocently, that's okay. Just observe the noise. And then the brain's going to be like, okay, who caused this noise in the first place? The dialogue is exhausting. And also, one more thing, you're not going to beat the system. And I'm stealing this from Aaron Turner, who's another brilliant 3Ps coach. Hey, Aaron, I don't know if you're listening, but he's in England. You're never going to beat the system, which means is you can't quiet thought down. You'll save yourself a lot of money and time. And I'm not telling anybody what to do. Look for your own wisdom. Don't listen to my words. Look for your own wisdom. Yeah. You'll save a lot of time and money by following your own guidance underneath the noise when it comes to getting help. Yeah. Now, I'm not talking about like, if you have suicidal ideation and you're thinking, your thoughts are going really negative, yeah, you're just one thought away, but you still need to have connection to be around people. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about daily stuff. And you can not take the noise personally. As hard as that sounds.
Yeah. No, amazing. I think that's a really good place to stop. We have a ton more questions and topics to go through.
We need part 2 here, Jimmy. I mean,
I really want to tap
like a mini series.
Yeah, I want to tap into some different things and techniques that you go through on your Instagram page, and I'm sure in your coaching as well around state of mind.
Guess what? I'm going to stop you right there. I don't have techniques. There's no techniques.
Okay.
You know why? Because there's nothing for me to change. I just get really present and I listen to my inner compass. We'll talk about that part 2 later.
Absolutely. Yeah, please.
Stay tuned.
So to end it, please give yourself a bit of a shout out and promote everything that is going on in your world, please, and tell everyone where they can find you as well.
Well, Jimmy, I just want to begin by thanking you for having me on. It's been an honor and a privilege, and you're doing some amazing work on this podcast. Don't stop. Keep moving forward. Yep. I can be reached on Instagram, Sam Light Consulting. Send me a DM. Offer a free consultation. It's about a 20-minute discovery call, and it's going to be a lot of listening. And I'd love to hear from you. You can also go to my website, samlightconsulting.com, and hit contact me. Send me an email. I'd love to hear what's going on with you, and I'd be happy to help.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thanks again, Sam. I do appreciate it, and I can't wait for more episodes that we get together. And I think it's a great discussion we've had, and we could have talked for hours probably. I'm just conscious that I want to keep a consistent timeline.
Yes, because you have to get to work.
Yeah, I do. Don't tell my boss.
I won't tell him.
No, flexible working in Australia is one of our biggest benefits. But
you're just living the dream, Jimmy.
Yeah. As long as the work's done.
As long as the work's done, but you're living the dream, and you're a bright light, man, and you're doing all the great work. And
thank you.
Keep up the good work, and I look forward to part 2.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, man.
Bye.